Why are all the celebrities so skinny right now?
I know exactly what you're talking about. You saw what was it? What recent award show?
They're rebranding it the Actors Awards, but it's SAG. It's the SAG Awards.
Okay. But yeah, I feel like everyone on the red carpet was just looking skeletal. And I'm talking Emma Stone, like she's gotten really skinny, don't you think?
Okay, we need to talk about Emma Stone because two things. One, her face look looks fabulous. Like, I'm not talking about her face card. She looks incredible. However, she has gotten so thin. And I think this time around at the Actor Awards, I don't know if you saw her outfit, but she was wearing this like pretty purpley dress with a shawl, like fully covering her arms. I think she intentionally wore that because at the last award ceremony that she was at, TikTok was blowing the F up about how skinny and skeletal her arms were. People were like, Emma, please eat some food. Stop losing so much weight. I think she probably wore that shawl so she wouldn't get so much flack this time around.
Yeah, just a little bit of cover up because she was wearing like a tight-ish dress, but that shawl was huge. It was like a full-on blanket. But it's not just her. It's like Demi Moore, I've noticed, is looking incredibly frail. And also Kelly Osbourne as of late.
Oh my God. That one scared me. It spooked me when I saw her face because I didn't recognize her.
You know, I thought it was AI at first or something because like, I don't know if she had like buccal fat removal, but it definitely has that like really gaunt look to the face. But I don't know. We're just trying to see this like overall trend. And I know like a lot of people out there, they're like, oh, it's not nice to comment on women's bodies or women's figures, but there are definitely trends when it comes to body shapes and body sizes. And, you know, a few years ago, it was all about that big curvy BBL. And now we're just on the opposite spectrum. Like we're back to borderline heroin chic.
It's concerning to me because a lot of young women look up to these celebrities as, you know, their aesthetic ideal. And when people are this skinny, I feel like all of these celebrities are trying to hit 100 pounds or under. That's called malnourished and unhealthy. That's like not even an aesthetic anymore. That's just dangerous.
I know, it's crazy. And I just feel like Hollywood, it just always has all of these like crazy body ideals that are never going to be attainable. But when it does lean like this kind of like scary skinny phase, like it's concerning.
Welcome to GlowJob, the beauty podcast that's more than skin deep. We're the only podcast to make you hotter and smarter.
All right, so to kick things off, we have some updates on a recurring story that we've been following. But Pat McGrath Labs is up for sale again. I feel like we were just here a couple of weeks ago. So Pat McGrath Labs is being shopped around despite recapitalization. The brand is being quietly shopped to potential buyers just weeks after receiving emergency financing from GDA Luma, which took a controlling stake to really help keep it afloat.
So Pat McGrath Labs was the golden child of the big makeup era, with their sales peaking in 2018 when they reached unicorn status, aka $1 billion in valuation. But then the market shifted. During COVID, minimal makeup and skin-first aesthetics were becoming popular. And then consumers began to favor founder-led relatability over artistry mystique. Their revenue fell sharply from $61.1 million in 2024 to $29.6 million in 2025. That is more than a 50% drop. So the company carries over $60 million in debtor in possession claims, plus another estimated $70 to $80 million in secured debt. So earlier this year, as we reported on a previous news roundup, they went up for public auction, but then canceled that auction because there were no serious buyers. And then GDA Luma, which was one of their debtors, injected $30 million into the brand to keep it operating throughout its bankruptcy process, Chapter 11. However, as reported by Business of Fashion, the investment bank Gordian Group, which was appointed by the bankruptcy judge, is now shopping the brand to potential buyers. So any buyer would be responsible for paying back the $60 million in claims, plus the $70 to $80 million in secured debt. And founder Pat McGrath, she has stepped down as CEO and she is now the chief creative officer, retaining a significant minority stake still in the brand. And right now, the CEO that's in place at Pat McGrath, he's an appointed CEO and his background is in distressed companies. Like he's used to coming in at like Chapter 11 companies and restructuring but he has zero beauty experience. So they're realizing, okay, we really got to get a real operator here to fix everything.
So this is just a wild ride that this brand has been on just this year alone. But let's break down like why this actually matters. Because basically this isn't just a liquidity issue. This is like a full on reset. And if you want to get into the mind of the potential buyer here, they have this huge checklist of things that they're going to have to nail. First, they're going to have to rebuild all of these retail relationships. They're going to have to really get a better understanding of how to tighten the product assortment and really just kind of refocus everything, basically starting from scratch. Like what originally made the brand iconic: high impact, editorial, runway driven makeup, and really just try to make this all work in today's landscape.
So Pat McGrath Labs represents the last era of true artistry driven prestige makeup. So if they're struggling, it feels like it's signaling a broader shift. Last week in our news roundup, we were talking about Makeup Forever, another prestige brand that's getting shopped around by their owner, LVMH.
You know, it's sad, but it's true. But I kind of feel like, what made Pat McGrath super famous, those really expensive $128 eyeshadow palettes, right? Everybody and their mom had one back in the day. But maybe consumers just don't want that anymore. I feel like, I don't know, eyeshadow has kind of fallen out of favor.
Eyeshadow felt like 2016 glam. Like I'm thinking Naked palette, I'm thinking Natasha Denona palettes, like everything was about a palette. I don't feel like brands really anchor with a palette anymore.
Definitely not. I mean, I'm still very much an eyeshadow girl, but to be honest, I haven't bought a new palette in forever, right? Like any type of pressed powder makeup, that's going to last you almost a lifetime if you take good care of it. So I just haven't ever felt the need to replace it, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. And then also when I do want a specific shade, sometimes, I just buy like an individual color. Like sometimes I'll go to MAC and just get a specific color.
So that's exactly what I do. I go to MAC and I build out my own palette because you can buy the individual ones and just customize it to exactly what you like and then replace it when you're done with it.
So on April 9th, this is going to be the court date where they will finalize their Chapter 11 reorganization. So any brand that wants to buy should probably come in before then. And we think, they need a strong operator. That's what's missing from the stack here. They need to tighten up their hero products and they need to recenter on that high fashion artistry in order for this brand to be revived again.
When I think about who could actually buy them and who could actually make a difference, like when I think strong operator, I'm thinking like L'Oreal status, right? Like people that truly understand how to run a business regardless of, who's the forefront of the brand, if that makes sense. So many of the brands that they have, like, they are kind of the strongest performers, like nothing tops L'Oreal. So I feel like that would be their ideal buyer, but I kind of doubt that they would bite.
I wonder if LVMH would be interested in this at all. Granted, they are offloading Makeup Forever. It's kind of in the same category. But, they do have Miss Pat McGrath as their creative director for their own namesake brand. But it's interesting to think about. Next up in beauty news, Gen Z's favorite pimple patch brand, Starface, has just raised $105 million in a minority round.
This is one of those brands that just keeps growing beyond all of our wildest, expectations. But, here what's happened is Asdo Consumer Partners and Align Ventures, they have gone in and put together this $105 million round. And so Asdo, which is pretty new to the scene, they actually launched just last year. They've already really built this reputation for operational excellence. They've had huge exits already with Skinny Pop, as well as Good Culture, which was bought by Al Catterton. And Align has, so much experience specifically in a lot of beauty adjacent lines. So we're thinking like Coterie, Touchland. So they've really built like an all-star team here.
So this is a huge round for Starface because to date, before this investment, they had only raised about $20 million. So this $105 million minority round just shows how big their ambitions really are.
And I think what's going to be really interesting to see is that, when we look at Starface and all of the financials, they're absolutely crushing it. Last year, they did over $100 million in net sales. And for the past few years, since 2023, they've been profitable. So technically, they don't need money. They're making money. They're in the green. But, they were founded in 2019 by founders Julie Schott and Brian Bordanic. And in 2026 alone, they're already going to be expected to do over 150 million sales. So this new influx of $105 million is really going to take them far.
So Starface has turned acne from something that is shameful to total self-expression. This is one of the largest indie acne raises ever. I mean, this brand has sold over 1 billion acne patches to this date, which also is a really funny number if we think about it.
Oh, absolutely. Because you know what? In each pack, you're definitely getting more than one. It kind of tricks you into thinking, have they sold 1 billion packs? No, they've sold 1 billion stickers.
Amazing marketing. Like truly, this is why they're doing so well. But this proves that Gen Z brands can be both cultural and profitable.
Next up, and I feel like we have so many finance adjacent stories today, but Saks Global has just secured $1 billion in a bankruptcy loan.
So Saks got approval from the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for this $1 billion debt in possession loan, a DIP. So this loan is going to help them clear critical hurdles over disputes with luxury brands and vendors over unpaid invoices. So this new funding is intended to stabilize their supplier relationships and give Saks time to restructure its debt.
Yeah, so to provide a little bit of context, it's actually amazing how much money Saks owes so many different people. But basically, they've been under so much pressure with all of these related vendor payment delays, and they owe hundreds of millions of dollars to hundreds, if not thousands of vendors. So for example, they owe $136 million to Chanel, they owe $60 million to Kering, and they owe $26 million to LVMH. So with this new money, $600 million of this $1 billion has to go to paying vendors and suppliers. And the reports say that $330 million has to be sent out within the next 2 weeks.
So several luxury brands have already paused their shipments amid payment disputes, shrinking Saks' inventory and making their sales harder to get out the door. There is nothing left to sell. So they'll likely be able to get fresh inventory with this loan.
So I actually went to Saks the other day just to kind of check it out and to see how good the sales were going to be. But, one of the things that Amex does, because I have an Amex Platinum card, is, you get $50 of credit every 6 months when you go to Saks. So I'm like, if Saks might be going under, I should probably go and cash in this credit. And so what we did is we went to Saks over in Beverly Hills, and typically what I would do with my $50 is I would always spend it on Diptyque, Byredo. I would buy a fancy hand soap from Jo Malone. But when we went down to the beauty floor, literally everything was sold out. I couldn't get a hand soap. I couldn't get a candle. The only thing I could get was this, what was it? It was an Acqua di Parma, a brand that I don't even really enjoy that much. But I ended up buying a hand soap from them because it was the only hand soap available in the entire store. And that's because we'd asked the staff, how come you guys don't have anything? When are you getting a restock? And they just said, we don't know if we're getting restocked. So that's exactly what happened. The brand stopped shipping products.
I get it. I would stop shipping product too if I weren't getting paid.
Yeah, right? Why are you just going to keep racking up the debt, racking up the IOUs? But it's good that these brands are finally going to be paid out. But it's absolutely insane that $600 million is going to, vendor payments, delayed vendor payments.
I hope all the indie brands are getting their payments back as well, because we know a few LA-based brands who sell to Saks who have not been paid in months.
No, it's really brutal for them, especially because, oftentimes it's the little guys that just get forgotten.
So Saks is a major prestige beauty distribution channel, and vendor trust is fragile. So luxury brands might demand tighter terms moving forward, even if Saks Global comes out of this afloat. So I wonder, is this the beginning of the end for department store beauty as we know it?
Honestly, I think yes. And I think one of the major signs that we covered last week was MAC, which is notoriously, at least in the United States, always been sold in department stores. MAC is finally going into Sephora. And that, that's been 40 plus years in the making. It's been 40 years since this has ever happened. So I feel like this is kind of signaling that, there's just a lot less trust with the department stores.
Back in the day, department stores were great because it curated everything for you. But now I feel like everything that's online is all about curation. Your grid, your Etsy storefront, your Depop page, your everything is curation based. So department stores, which were very broad based curation, are becoming less of a thing for younger generations.
I feel like anytime I go into a department store as of lately, basically the only thing people are doing is returning online orders.
Next up in news, beauty brands are suing the US government over tariffs. So over the last few months, several beauty brands have filed lawsuits challenging the Trump administration's tariffs. Recently, in a 6-3 Supreme Court ruling, the Trump tariffs were struck down, which has sparked more brands to file for legal action with refund-seeking lawsuits.
And so to break down some of the brands that are participating right now, they're huge. It's like L'Oreal, Dyson, Sol de Janeiro, Revlon, Elf, Schick, Conair, Bath & Body Works. The list goes on and on because in total, it's not just beauty brands that are suing the government right now. Over 1,000 brands across all different industries are filing lawsuits. But I think it is important to note, like, a key thing about like all of these tariffs in general that consumers may not realize. But one of the important things is that like the foreign countries here, they're not the ones paying the tariffs. Here in the US, the importers are the ones paying the tariffs. So, all of these costs, they're getting passed down to the brands that are then passing it down to the consumers. And the consumers are often left wondering like why their favorite products are getting more expensive because either they're having to pay or the brand is just eating the cost because they don't want to lose market share.
So Allure has previously reported that Americans have been expected to pay anywhere from 10 to over 60% more on imported skincare, makeup, and other personal care items. And another thing to note here, basically no brands are 100% US made. In beauty specifically, they rely heavily on imported ingredients, packaging, components, and finished goods. So even if a website says that it's quote unquote made in America, that's often not the whole truth.
Consumers, they have felt price hikes everywhere across beauty, right? Tools, fragrance, skincare. And what's happening now with all of these lawsuits is that all of these brands, they're now demanding refunds, right? And this could be worth potentially millions of dollars. But one of the questions I have is like, if these refunds come through, what's going to happen? Are brands going to lower their prices? Are they going to keep the margins? Or, is there a world where they're actually going to go ahead and issue these refunds to the clients?
I think issuing a refund would be so difficult. I'm thinking back to when Ultraviolet, when they got all that flack for their bad sunscreen that was like technically actually an SPF 4 when they said it was like an SPF 30 or 40. I forgot what it was. RIP to that because I love that sunscreen. But when they did those refunds, that was also not that easy to be able to suss out. For this, I feel like brands most likely will revert to their old pricing and then hopefully consumers will be happy again.
Yeah, I hope so. But it was so crazy. I remember when, all of these tariffs were first coming out last year, there were some brands that were literally adding a line item at checkout to reflect the tariffs, right? There'd be like a 10% surcharge, 20% surcharge. But, they were just figuring out ways and how to communicate to the consumer of why their prices were increasing. So now, I don't know, hopefully we don't see as much of that anymore. Next up, we have reports that Palantir is offering Zyn nicotine patches as a workplace perk. But oh my gosh, did this headline catch our eye?
So Zyn, the very popular nicotine pouch brand, is owned by Philip Morris International, a longtime military supporter and, of course, one of the biggest tobacco companies in the world.
Palantir is actually like not the first tech company that I've heard of doing this. There are a lot of tech companies, like especially in San Francisco, where there's a lot of like that biohacking bro community, because essentially like the reason why they are all super into microdosing nicotine, or I guess macrodosing nicotine in some cases, but there's these like science related claims where basically like nicotine is binding to these nicotinic receptors and it's really supposed to activate like your attention pathways and your memory circuits and help with dopamine release, aka like all things that would technically make for a better employee.
So I think this is my hot take. Philip Morris, the fact that they own Zyn, Philip Morris has one of the biggest lobbying groups in the US, like period, full stop. Think about Mad Men days, right? Like they were they were slinging tobacco left and right, telling us it was healthy for women, for pregnant women. It made you like productive, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, now we know the dangers of smoking tobacco and cigarettes, so you can't tout those health benefits anymore. Now they're repackaging it into like a very like nicotine specific, like treat nicotine like caffeine. It's actually a lot like how caffeine got branded as, the productivity drug, because now it's okay. Everyone drinks coffee. Everyone drinks matcha. It's like considered safe and cool and, effective for your day-to-day work life. Nicotine is getting this rebrand, and the fact that it's in like workplaces as a perk is only helping to feed this rebrand of nicotine being like a health benefit. I don't know how beneficial nicotine really is to productivity, but this is a fabulous rebrand for Philip Morris.
Oh, 100%. And, like when you were talking about like the relationships to the military in the past, like Philip Morris, they provide so much like tobacco products to the military. And they do kind of often make these claims about like how nicotine specifically can be good for soldiers, but, we are not the only skeptics here. A lot of critics, what they basically argue is that, if you are already congenitively normal, nicotine isn't going to do anything to really just enhance or, increase long-term performance. Really, the only thing that it is super, super addictive.
It's so addicting. It's so addictive. It's crazy. But you know what? Of all places to have nicotine pouches, Palantir makes sense to me.
Yeah. One of Gautam's old companies, I won't say which one, but, they had Zyn patches in the office too, which is crazy.
Wow. It also feels like a very Gen Z thing too, in a way.
It's definitely Gen Z, 100%. And also like, I guess it's a little more office appropriate, right? Because like there's no smell to it. There's no like, your cotton candy clouds of smoke that vaping comes with. But I don't know. I feel like tech really likes it because it really is all about this like biohacking culture, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. I don't agree with it, but it makes a lot of sense. Next up, Summer Fridays launches their very first fragrance, and they are entering the fragrance game with Sunlight Vanilla Eau de Parfum. So their top note is bergamot. Their middle notes, or they like to call heart notes, are caramel and coconut, and the base is vanilla, musk, tonka, and amber.
Well, that is a very gourmand, if I've ever heard of one.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know. I actually really like this whole idea behind the fragrance because it was inspired by their very first butter lip balm product. So just kind of mimicking that same smell, which I thought was like very cute and smart and kind of triggering a little bit of nostalgia. But it makes no surprise to us that Summer Fridays is entering fragrance. I think we actually called it that we thought Rhode was going to be the first one, but Summer Fridays doesn't surprise. But basically, fragrance is still one of the fastest growing prestige beauty categories. And so it makes so much sense that this is just kind of their next step. They went from skin to color cosmetics and now fragrance.
This last year has really been the season of gourmand. And Jules, I'm not a big gourmand girly, so I just cannot partake in any of this.
My only gripe with last season being all about gourmands is that I don't feel like a lot of the gourmands that came out are like a true representation of what this category actually is. Because like I am a gourmand girl, and a lot of the scents that I smelled last year, I freaking hated. Like, I don't know, the ones that smell like maple pecan pancakes or, like cinnamon roll. Like I don't necessarily categorize like that as gourmand, if I want to be super fair.
Yeah. So those ones, a lot of the quote unquote gourmands that came out last year, to me, they were sickly sweet. And it was like cotton candy, dessert stuff that is maybe fitting for a small child, but I could not wear that as a grown woman and take myself seriously.
No, and that's totally fair. But like the whole gourmand, like gourmands before this kind of whole craze, they didn't really smell like that. And especially the ones that I would lean to, like a lot of today's gourmands, they lean a lot on like heavily synthetic saccharine, like overly saccharine fragrances. But that's not like the perfect representation of what the entire like family is, if that makes sense. It's like if every floral was a rose, that's just like not what it is.
Yeah, it's fallen flat for me. These gourmand scents have been coming out, but like I'm open to something that will blow my mind. So please, brands, come out with something good.
Yeah, but no, it's fun because like let's kind of trace back a little bit. So last year, I mean, obviously there was Rare Beauty coming out with the fragrance. Merit also came out with the fragrance. Now we have Summer Fridays. I feel like we're probably still going to see a fragrance come out by Rhode sometime this year. Right?
I hope so. I feel like it's what is on track for them. I was a little surprised by the pimple patch thing, but as I'm thinking back to it, it actually makes sense because there's way less R&D involved in that. That's like so easy to push out.
Oh, 100%. Basically, basically it's just like, what color do you want the pimple patch to be?
Yeah.
Next up in beauty news, Sephora is doubling down yet again on high-tech K-beauty products.
Sephora is expanding their premium K-beauty range with brands like Iope, which is known for stem cell and biofermentation tech, and Rejurin, which is built around PDRN technology. This is the salmon DNA that has become so popular on everyone's feeds, and it's commonly used in Korean injectable skin boosters.
You know, what's interesting to me is like, this is a whole new wave of K-beauty, right? It's not like the sheet masks and the snail mucin that we're all used to, but it's like, one, a higher price point than what we've traditionally seen from all these K-beauty lines. But two, it's like, it's truly like a clinical biotech driven. But it signals to me that like American consumers, they're very like active curious. They're really ready to see what else is out there.
Next up in news, Wizard Wellness is the new allergy care meets beauty brand. And this is a brand new category within beauty and wellness. They are touted as a next generation allergy care brand that treats allergies more like skincare than a clinical chore. So they combine holistic wellness rituals with microbiome science and what they call a clinical approach. Cute. Meaning that these products are science-based, but they still feel intuitive and enjoyable to people like us. And they are available at Ulta.
Yeah, so it's, you know, it's kind of just giving like a refresh and a rebrand to a lot of products that we're kind of familiar with, like whether it's like a nasal rinse, like a neti pot, or any just kind of like more holistic allergy care. But they came out with like a ton of different products, right? Like the sinus rinse, they have a nasal spray, inhaler sticks, oral strips. So I kind of like how they're just like redesigning this entire category of like what options do exist. Because traditionally it's been so boring. Or you go to the allergy aisle in CVS and I don't know, it's like Zyrtec or Benadryl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not sexy and it's not fun. As someone who has suffered from seasonal allergies, like I am too familiar with this stuff and it's not cute, but they make it very approachable and more of something that like I would actually want to incorporate in my day-to-day. Because, you know, when I am blowing my nose like crazy during hay fever season, like the idea of whipping out my neti pot and like tilting my head over the sink and pouring water up my nose and out through it's just like, it's not a cute feel. It's not a cute ritual.
No, definitely not. And I like how they're kind of positioning it more of like treating your allergies as just part of like your overall health, kind of like a skincare ritual a little bit. Because a lot of what they're positioning does, right? It's like it's focusing on the microbiome rather than only focusing on like antihistamine responses. So I think they're kind of like, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a wellnessification of medicine in some ways.
100%. One of their products that I find really interesting and different than anything I've ever experienced is actually their oral strips. So they're like these, do you remember Listerine strips? Like when that was a thing, I used to use them all the time, but like it's that shape and you put them on your tongue, but it's kind of like, it's almost like a vitamin strip because they're strawberry flavored. And I swear they taste like fruit roll-ups. They actually taste really good. And they're supposed to have like all of these different ingredients to help support your allergies and overall hydration benefits. But it's like kind of a cool way to incorporate like a vitamin-based thing, into nasal care.
Yeah, that's cute. I mean, like those kind of like strip supplements, those have been around for a little while though, right? Like especially in like the Korean supplement stage. Like they have those like, I don't know, any supplement you want, you can get it in the strip form because they all claim that it just like helps with nutrient and like ingredient absorption. But I like it. Like this is kind of like the first time we're seeing an American brand taking a stab at this. And lastly, some of our favorite creators out there, but the Lipstick Lesbians are officially launching a brand called Lipstick Labs. And it's this brand new model. It's kind of like a prototype to market beauty incubator.
So the way it's going to work is they first will manufacture samples. Then they're going to release those samples to their audience. And then based on real-time feedback, they're going to iterate what products are actually going to go to market. So this decides whether to scale a product or to kill a product.
And I like how they're doing this because like their whole shtick is like, you know, they're industry insiders. They have like, you know, almost 40 years of experience between the two of them. And they're kind of doing this thing where they're just like pulling back the curtain and just like removing all gatekeeping related to what it takes to bring a product to market. So, you know, one of the things that they're doing is like, you know, they're removing this fear of like too bold launches. Because so many brands out there, they just kind of like follow in line what the brand before them is doing. They're not doing a lot of innovation. So I think doing things their own way, like they're really going to see like, if I make something crazy, are people actually going to like it?
As cool as this sounds, I gotta say, the skeptic in me feels like this is a little gimmicky because it's cool in theory. However, I don't know how scalable this is for a long-term brand. My take is that they will do this for like the first year or so, get some data, and then they're going to be, just like every other beauty brand and launch a certain amount of SKUs every year. And that's it.
Yeah. And like what I can say from like working at a skincare brand and kind of understanding, especially how like marketing campaigns work, a lot of times, like, a brand might be working on launching a new product, but the way that they position the launch is they'll say things like, you asked us for this. You begged us for this. All of your comments and reviews were saying that how you wanted this brand new product. So we are making it for you now, even though the product has been in development for years, right? Like there are ways to kind of craft a story, but I don't know. I feel like their whole thing has always been wanting to educate consumers on how things are made or, just about the industry in general. So I think that they will do a really good job of continuing that education. But I'm excited to see, like, if you're going to claim that you're going to bring like crazy new launches or crazy innovative things, like I want to see what that actually means.
Yeah, like how crazy are we actually getting? Is this marketing speak or are we really going to see innovation? Who knows? Okay, guys, that is a wrap on today's news roundup. Stay tuned next Monday for our weekly roundup of the top beauty, business, and pop culture stories.
And don't forget to tune in this Thursday where we'll be doing another industry deep dive.
GlowJob fam, we'll see you then.
Love you. Bye.